Buddy to Spare Bedroom Studios. I'm your host, Ryan MacDougall, on Solo Spotlight with Ryan MacDougall. This week I had the pleasure of chatting with Hannah and Dylan Bond, the creators of EYEMKR, a prosthetic eye company where they have innovated DIY prosthetic eye kits. I had a great conversation with them. Due to technical difficulties, some of the conversation, 25 minutes of the initial conversation had to be cut due to audio-visual technical problems. The quality just wasn't there, just due to internet issues. You're coming into 25 minutes of a conversation. I hope you enjoy it as much as I did. It was a great conversation, talking about their purpose, Hannah being a sixth-generation ocularist, their journey through prosthetics, and Dylan's transition from financial advising to being an ocularist, and everything under the sun. With that said, let's get into it. This is Solo Spotlight with Ryan MacDougall, Episode 2, EyeMakers. And I'm just going to record this with Skype. Let's go into the DIY. We talked about different applications that you guys seen through like braces and night guards and stuff like that. So that kind of was the inspiration to do something like that. So what was exactly like the development part of it? Did you guys have to seek any advice from people, or did you have to go to certain people to kind of understand how the logistics of everything was going to work?
Well, it started, so one of our, let's say our main, we developed this through pain processes, right? So like we ran into problems and then we had to solve them. So one of the first problems that we ran into was, I was going to see if I have a representation, was finding the location of the iris, right? And so, because that's such a technical part of our job when someone's usually with us, is making sure that iris is in the right spot.
So like people aren't like cross-eyed.
Right. And so that was one of our biggest challenges. And so when we would make the kit in
like
the
beginning, first generation,
right? Yeah, that was kind of like the main caveat. It's like, we can make you a fun eye, we can make you a cool eye. You want sparkles, you want glitter. You just have to do the whole entire aperture. We can't do an iris, otherwise we're just not sure if it's going to be the right spot. So that was our initial DIY kit, but then we figured out how we solve the problem, right? So now with our kits, we have a little sticker that we include, and the person puts a little sticker over their iris, and then we're able to capture that in the silicone. We're now able to even do application. So then now we're able to do things like, here's one they're working on right now, and I just pulled it out of the cooker, so it's not shiny yet. But here's a cyborg eye, right? We wouldn't be able to do that in our first iterations of the kit unless you sent us your eye. That's everything, right? If it's looking over here and you don't want it to.
And then it's like, once you send it away and you do it, it's like the damage is already done.
Yeah, and then if it's off, you have to redo the whole thing, and that's another 10 hours.
I can definitely feel your pain with that. Another thing too was like, was there any like budget restrictions, or was there any like cost barrier? Because you look at these type of equipment, and I'm sure it's not cheap.
Yeah, we wanted to make sure that the kit wasn't going to be too costly for us to make or to send out, so I think we actually came up with something that's pretty reasonable price-wise. It doesn't necessarily cut too much into what we need for our business.
Right.
So that actually wasn't, the funny thing is, the biggest barrier to our field is got to be, there's only like around 300 ocularists around in our society, maybe a little more. And connecting the ocularist to the person, that's the hardest, even for what we do now. We have the kit and the technology to be able to make someone's eye based on what we're using, but it's really hard to reach them.
And it's like a trust thing
is what we're using. Yeah. Oh, for sure. There's that. But like, truly, it's like, we use, our number one source of advertising is Instagram.
Right.
And it's kind of unfortunate because you don't want to put that much, you feel so leveraged.
It also is interesting that you bring up something like social media, because like I feel like that's kind of a double-edged sword. It's usually based on the algorithm, right? So it's like you kind of like you're your own worst enemy in a way of like what you're willing to put up with, or the amount of attitudes that you're willing to let in, because it almost like opens up a huge void for more of that, right? So it's like, how would you find that? Like, because even talking to Christina, she said that if she were to try to do these fun eyes, say 10 years ago, it probably wouldn't have landed because it would be seen more as like a gimmick and people weren't as inclusive. And it was kind of a timing thing, right?
We would get one person every now and then. Like Dylan actually, he started making these cool eyes. Well, I mean, in the beginning of your apprenticeship, but it was like one every now and then. Like it was usually the more artistic person or someone who is just, it was definitely a different personality. And yeah, and there's like stories that I hear of like my grandfather or whatever made like a bloodshot eye for someone, their night eye, and they made like a day eye. So
Right.
there was some sort of, but now it is more like across the board. It's more personalized, it's more
Right.
accepted, and well, we were working with a place where it was just called a trick eye. So it's like we've all, and
Right.
for different things, like you can look at like, oh, look at this cool trick I have, but now it seems more like it's about them and like expressing how they feel inside, like
Yes.
like it's not a trick. No, this is me. Like I'm going all sparkles. Like I'm
Right. Yeah.
It's
And then, like Christina alluded to, like they used to call them novelty eyes, and she said like it was one of these things where she said like that doesn't really kind of fit, right? Do you kind of find that there's any challenges with children or people in their adolescence that are still growing to follow that DIY process? Do you find like it might be a little bit harder? And like, do you guys send different molds based on age groups, or how does that work?
So we use the same process to make the DIY kit for whether it's an adult or if it's a child, an adolescent. But the only difference is that you're right. The child is going to grow quicker, or it's their shape is going to change much more rapidly than the person is already an adult. You might see subtle changes in someone's eye,
like weight loss,
sure,
weight gain.
Right.
You're going to see stuff like that. But with a child, they're growing very fast, and so let's say a 5-year-old got a cool eye with us. We probably would remake their eye year and a half, 2 years later, right? They might need another eye.
Right.
So we do a kids club where we actually significantly reduce the cost of our kit. And it would require them to still work with their ocularist wherever they are, or to actually come in, because they need to actually have their eye the same.
Sure.
Correct. Right. What we usually do, it's like your eye it fits, you're happy with it, you have a relationship with your ocularist wherever you are. Now you want a cool eye, we'll send you the kit. Right.
Right. Because like the dimensions and stuff are already kind of there. Yeah. So it seems like you have to do a little bit more like legwork at the start to kind of have the dimensions and everything figured out for you guys to be able to do the proper job in making sure that like the creation is what they want. Now, with that, do you have had any like specific mentors? This is for both of you.
I'd say that the way that I learned, and this has kind of been a story of my life. I've learned a lot through working with people doing things the wrong way, right? So I've had mentors in the past where I didn't necessarily appreciate our relationship and how things were arranged and how the whole process. I don't know necessarily if I've had the best working relationships. And so I've had to learn how to do things the right way through experiencing the wrong ways. I've experienced that quite a bit in my career, especially with making eyes. And a lot of it is, you have to learn on your own. I think there is ways to be able to teach people how to do this the right way. There is, but it's complicated, and you have to have someone who has to have the patience and the time to share that information. That's not always available.
But with you, Hannah, with the generational stuff, has there been things that have been passed down? Have you had a different experience, or has it kind of been the same thing where you've learned it yourself and you've had the ability to kind of make your own mistakes and figure out the way? Or has there been anything through generations that you've kind of still hold as value and you kind of carried on?
So I would say a little bit of both, but most of it is through learning through this guy. Like the time that I did spend with my lineage and learning that craft, because I've had the opportunity of working with my family for a period of time and then working for the person that Dylan had his apprenticeship with. And then also now working alongside Dylan and seeing how he's developed his technique. In each place, each ocularist, each practice there's some things that are same, there's some things that are completely different. So it truly is like an art form and a craftsmanship. What I mostly did with my family was run the insurance part of it.
Okay.
And I would have opportunities to see a little bit in the lab and to see kind of a little bit what's going on. But my main responsibility and my role was to be the office manager.
Right.
And so when I actually, the goal was, or the future was, I guess, with that, and this is kind of how dentistry works as well. The next generation kind of inherits the business or
The business. Right.
Or acquires it somehow. And what you're doing is you're acquiring the patients, you're acquiring the standard of operating procedures and things like that.
Right.
Because I chose to no longer do my apprentice with my family and to just really get up, move to California, marry Dylan, I just left that part behind. And then I started working with Dylan and his apprentice. And then I got more clinical work doing that because I wasn't doing the office manager type. So Dylan and I even had a chunk of time where we were running the ship a little bit together, and it was kind of
at our old practice where I studied.
Mm-hmm. And there were some things that were like, man, this just doesn't really gel with us. This pace, it still didn't feel like it was ours and our technique and how we wanted to practice. And so, but got really great, saw lots of patients, saw lots of different situations. And because it was an insurance ran practice where the workload was
right.
Very high too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And so we were just jamming in the back. So lots of trial and error happened there. Dylan is working with his patients, the other ocularist is working with his. And so kind of coming into the lab, and you start doing some of like the other, you work your way up to.
You two are very like motivated individuals, and it's interesting. And like, I'm gonna throw this by you. Did you just kind of think that like, I have such a good idea, there's no way that I'm gonna be able to make this when I'm like someone else's boss? I just got to do my own thing.
That was really it, especially with the cool eyes. I mean, so I started off making these pretty much at the beginning of my career. I met some people online and they wanted them. And I would talk to my boss about it and how to go about it. And the way that his business did it, it didn't work with me. And it made it difficult for us to actually get it done. And so we had to turn a bunch of people down. And so it got to a point where I was like, screw it. We got to do this on our own.
Yeah.
You can't have anybody holding us back from just doing the thing that we feel compelled to do. It's so difficult when you have to ask someone for permission to do this thing that you just know is right.
Like there has to be some sort of like moral like playing field where it's like not everybody's going to come with the same resources. Not everybody. Talking to you, Dylan, it's very interesting where you say like when you had mentors and stuff like that, and they didn't really fit with like the mold you're trying to do. And there's a big quote that I have and I kind of live by where it's like, success teaches you nothing. Do you find that you have more of like a fulfillment now than you were to have in any other jobs? Like, do you find that you've like your character arc is kind of like coming into like full swing?
Yeah, it feels, and to make a point to what you said before, we say this thing in wrestling: you either win or you learn. And that kind of resonated with me for a minute, but what a journey.
Thinking about the thing is not doing the thing. Talking about the thing is not doing the thing. The only thing that's doing the thing is doing the thing, right?
Well, and it's
So,
been like that, we had to go through that. Well, in creating the business, there's this period of talking about the thing and motivation, which is important because it gets you to another stage, right?
right,
You're like excited about something, and we would sit under this tree and we'd write our name down and logo, and we come up with ideas for it. But really, it comes to a point where it's like, okay, start. Let's
like
see.
you have everything now. Yeah,
Yeah, we had this like red composition notebook that's like just kitchen or chicken scratch on it, and
yeah,
it's like, like is this? And it's crazy to think we're probably actually even older than 2 years old officially.
right. In terms of how much of the production.
Yeah, like we would go for a walk in the morning at a park, set out a blanket, and then just have this red notebook, and we're like, "This is our official office meeting.
Yeah,
Let's start figuring out a name." And we even went through different names, like the EYEMKR official, and we're like, "Oh, that's so silly." And then eventually it transitioned, and then I thought about I have this image in my head that I think it was my grandfather's license plate that said "EyeMaker," spelled exactly the way we spell it, like MKR. And as soon as I said that, and I looked at Dylan, joke, there was a little white dove that came and sat like right on top of us, in front of us. Like,
it's destiny.
I was like, "That's fine. It's EyeMaker. We're gonna drop the V."
Drop the ball.
Yeah. And
So,
let me
yeah.
ask you too, how is the dynamic of you guys running a business together? Like I've had my experience in working in the same workplaces with significant others, and depending on what the job is, there's different like mitigating circumstances. Do you feel like it's a lot easier to work together as a couple? Because there's always that saying where like you never eat where you shit, like type thing, right? Where it's like,
Right now, because we're growing this business, I've really had to dedicate a lot of my time to being a dental hygienist. And so there's a little bit of like this longing inside for me. I'm like, oh, I just like want to be with my husband, like making eyeballs. And I mean, I love being a dental hygienist and I'm really good at it. But there's like this balance in like the way we're doing it now. It's like we're kind of working from home, and it's really nice. Like it's like, wow, like sometimes I get jealous of him. I'm like, what, dude, you just like work in your pajamas all day? Like he'll be or onesie or something, and I'm like, dude, I want to like work in my uniform.
I'm in scrubbing teeth.
Yeah.
What you're trying to say is, what's it like us working together? And there's times where she seriously is just like, I think we need to fight. We need to wrestle. And so we have a wrestling match right here.
Yeah.
And if we gotta we gotta have it. So she'll kick me, and we have pads. It's all safe, but
It's like for position for like who's the boss, and it's like well, a lot of
No, that's you don't see this type of energy normally. Normally, it's like one person runs the ship, the other person kind of takes the back seat. But it seems like you two both have a very invested 50-50 idea of like what you're looking for, right? Especially when you talk about having that the book and going on these official meetings and stuff like that.
we've built this together. Like there's so much love in EyeMaker because this is like this is my best friend. Like, yeah,
Right.
it's like, okay, like
Yeah.
we have a dream, like we want this like waffle shop or
And
whatever. Like you
so-
can actually do it because, like you said, it requires an immense amount of empathy. And
Yeah.
you either got it or you don't.
Exactly. Yeah. And now, have you guys had any like specific experiences without like discussing any patients or their names or whatever, but you've met a patient and you were like, holy shit, like this is what I do it for. Where
my
it's
first day.
like,
So I'll give you two. So, and then Hannah I'm sure has hers. So my first experience was my first day, and it was when I was just shadowing, and I was looking into someone's orbit. Let me take a step back. My boss was like, "Come on in, let's get you started." And the person had all the innards moved from the eye, so they had cancer. The tissue was radiated. It was just like a giant hole inside of
the ball wasn't even there.
nothing. It was completely, yeah. The cancer that they had, I mean, they took quite a bit of material from the body. And so when you're looking at this person, it almost looked like a skeleton, right? It was a big, deep cavity. And so for this person, we were just putting like a silicone plug in. He's like, I don't want anything fancy. I just want a plug that matches my skin tone. But I remember looking inside this person's skull, and this is my first day on the job, and just sitting there, I took a deep breath, and it was like, this is what you're going to do now.
Yeah.
And you're going to have to take care of these people. I mean, you're going to see some things that you've never seen before, and you're going to have a good reaction. You're going to have to be able to process what you're seeing. You're seeing a lot of trauma.
Yeah, you just walk in and be like,
but you want to. I'm human, dude. Like when those stories that we hear from patients, they're crazy. And every single one of them's got one. Mind you, it's kind of like when a person comes home from work and they're like, guess what I heard today?
Yeah.
Every single day. Every single day you hear that from us, with our patients rather, or our friends as we call them. And there was this other one where we got to, this is right after we started EYEMKR, and we got to stay with this gentleman and his whole family, like grandkids. It was like a whole, and we rented a place. We did the whole thing for free, but we just loved this moment. We got to actually, some of the grandkids would help us polish the eye. Like it was.
One of his granddaughter was like, I'm like, do you want to put your grandpa in? And he's totally like grandpa.
Yeah.
Like he even felt like our grandpa. Like
right.
Like,
yeah.
oh,
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's fine.
Yeah.
It changed our life. And then we were like, this is what we're going to do. This is what we're going to do. So it was a couple moments. My first day, and then honestly, one of our first clients.
To me, it's
Yeah.
like everything.
Yeah, it's like it's almost like every client.
Like every person, like we want to make it something special. Like one time we had a little girl and she was getting her first fun eye. And I'm like, oh, like what if I set the eye like in a little tea set? And then I was like, I'll like roll it in on a tea set and be like, let's have tea today. You know, we have like a little tea party cup, her eyes in her tea set. And so it's just like, and each person's different. That I had another kid who was autistic and like really, really, really like Thomas the Train, just
right.
Really just like, so I like I like put like coloring pages. It's just like people, aside from their injuries and their loss and like we're making eyes, it's like the universe has brought us here together, and you're just sharing that experience with someone. Share this. Absolutely. Like, and I get that too with being a dental hygienist. And there's something very special about being in the healthcare industry in general because of really serving people. Like Dylan and I, we love to serve. Like, that's why we volunteer as wrestling coaches. That's why
Sunday school.
We teach Sunday school. And it's just like, it's how we give back. And it's like, it gives back to return. Like we have been in a position where we've been in need of assistance, and because someone else saw what we needed and met us where we needed them, it's kept us afloat and like kept us going. And to be able to be like to someone like, oh, I have this skill, like a random skill. Like actually, I was cleaning a patient's teeth and they had a missing eye.
Yeah.
I just wanted to like, try to like keep it, like teeth oriented, but yeah, it's just like cleaning their teeth. And I just was looking and it's like, I can also clean your eyeball. What? I was like,
yeah.
Like, are you kidding me? Because normally this patient has to travel. And it's like, I clean your teeth and I clean your eye.
Is how much of you being in the healthcare field or like the serving field has enabled you to be a better patient? You find you're better at assisting them to do their job?
Yeah, I think, when you spend your time taking care of people, you start to go, okay, it starts off and you're just trying to do the task. And then you start doing the task for a while and you start to learn the task and the ins and outs and you go, well, there's ways to do it better. And then you come up with your method and then you're proud of your method. And then you think it's something special, right? That you do different than other people who serve. And then you start to recognize that there's a system that you create. Then you go to make food or go out to dinner and then you get your hair cut or you go to the doctor, you go to the dentist and you recognize that this person puts the same type of intention into their method that you do. And so you don't want to get in the way of their process.
You
Like,
can respect it.
Yes. And you're like, okay, I get it. Like, I spend a lot of time on my process too, taking care of people. Only I don't want to get in your way, especially if I'm bringing some anxiety into the table, right? Oh, I'm 15 minutes late for my appointment, or that guy at the gas station was being a total jerk to me, and now, or whatever. And I'm bringing that energy into you when I know that you have a task.
Right.
You have an hour to do this task, and then someone's coming right afterwards.
Right.
I'm aware of all this because I do something similar. So I'm going to give you a break, right? And let you do your thing. You know,
and I think that I always tell people a lot, I'm like, people aren't interfering with your life because they want to interfere with your life. They probably don't even know you're there.
Yeah, for sure.
Like, everybody's in their own little world, right? You kind of have to meet people in the middle, or be sort of like water, right? Where a lot of people are very rigid when they go through life. Being in that type of healthcare field, or being in someone where you're that intimate with people, I think like it allows you to like respect people more, and like kind of understand that like everybody's going through something. Right? It's very interesting talking to the likes of yourselves, because like I don't think many people, I think that kind of gets lost. You almost have this like emotional superpower, right? Where you're able to have way more of a perseverance, or way more of an understanding of people, where like that person probably doesn't get that too often. So not only are you doing a big thing with your jobs, when it comes to your personal life, do you find that you're easier to build friendship?
Well, I think I heard something that made sense to me. It was like, don't attribute malice to something that could basically just be, lack of.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely. Like it's good things to work on, like being patient. It's a practice. Some days I'm not perfect at it. Some days I have it's called like health, like burnout or whatever.
Right.
But what I find is that it kind of is like I've had multiple situations where will be somewhere random or whatever, and like now I'm just sitting on the couch having a good old conversation with someone, and it's like it must have been like a waitress and stuff. So it's like I just like love people, but there is, a level like for that type of person, self-care is huge. So to give that back, because I think it's transformed me into a person where I am less judgmental. I'm able to see two sides of the coin, and to have empathy for someone who maybe necessarily someone might look at and be like, like they don't
or you look at or you look at like the impoverished community and stuff like that, where you say like, how much do people see homeless people or people that are down on their luck as like write-offs, right?
Oh, absolutely. Like one of the things that Dylan and I do, there's a couple of reasons why we do this, but we've done 2 Thanksgivings, but we volunteer at the homeless shelter and serve dinner. The reason why we do that, though, is to have empathy for these people. There are some people that truly are just down on their luck, trying to get ahead and need support. On the other hand, Dylan and I, 2 experiences, like one time we were filling up our gas tank in Sacramento, and a guy tried to murder us at the gas station. It was 5 o'clock. The guy looked like he was possessed for a second, locked eyes with me. Dylan gets in the car, he's like, we gotta go. He's like, we can't, we're hooked up. This guy tries to come out our car with a lighter. And so clearly he was a homeless guy under some sort of drug. And I'm so grateful I married a superhero, but like he got out of the car, took the lighter out of the guy's hand, and just chucked it across the parking lot. And I remember like in here in California, there's a lot of homeless people, and so sometimes these encounters can be, either good or either bad. Like one guy was holding an "I love Jesus" sign out the window. I was like, oh yeah,
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And so it's like there's a little bit of like PTSD a little bit, because like we've just had really negative experiences. However, when we chose to go to this homeless shelter and serve people, and to see there really are just people that are trying, and some of our regulars stuff, like, and really, like, there's like one lady that I love that she likes turkey skin, like the skin of turkey. So like, I know, like, when we go back for Thanksgiving, I'm going to make sure I like set some turkey skin aside for her. And like, I like think about these people.
Yeah.
Same thing with all my patients. I like think about them. Like, I truly like care for these people that like we've shared a moment with in time, and helps us heal maybe some judgment that we can cast on people, especially like after being almost murdered twice.
Exactly.
And then
Yeah, it's probably a hard thing to come back to, and like then be like, yeah.
being angry, resentful, and being like, who the heck is letting this happen? Which there are some, we do need to solve some problems because this is not okay.
Right.
And then also being angry with law enforcement and being like, oh my gosh, like if I were attempted to murder someone, then I would be locked up behind the door.
Yeah, that's a big thing.
And we have multiple interactions with law enforcement that just wasn't seen in a positive light, and we didn't feel seen and heard. But I also serve law enforcement, and I have them as patients, and I clean their teeth.
One of our neighbors.
I get to know their family and our neighbors. And then I start to feel those feelings of not being seen and heard, or feeling safe, or feeling like, like instead of like law enforcement coming, like, good thing I have like my husband, like kind of thing that makes me feel protected and safe. So to answer your question, even just something about this, it's like, we have to practice empathy, and we have to practice those patients, I believe, like every day, because we're just human, and we're just trying to all get through this life.
I was just going to say the same thing. It just reminds you that basically, like, everybody's human. Like, there's not going to be like the perfect person, and like the mistakes that I might make will be equivalent to the same mistakes that someone else that might be down on their luck, or so. And it's really great to be having this conversation, because I think, like, even just talking about the idea of practicing empathy and kind of having that outwardly sense of like, because right now in our world it's shifted to like a what's in it for me mentality, right? Of like, what can I get out of this? And they say it in all of these mafia movies in Hollywood of like, that's the only question you should be asking, of like, what's in it for me? And like, what can I get out of this, right? But then you look at like where we are in like the times, and we're having all these religion wars. And I think this is kind of a sentiment of like, this is where everybody kind of needs to understand that like, this isn't a personal thing. Like, and for certain things too, where like, say you have a bad experience with a cop, it's one of these notions that I always kind of say to myself of like, I have to take it professionally, not personally. Like, everybody has like a profession to do, and like, I might not understand the inner workings. So like, I have to take this as like, I'm a client, or like I'm someone, and this guy might have had hundreds of bad interactions that have formed him into the way that he wants to act today. Or I go to the Tim Hortons and I get a coffee, and the guy's like super outwardly happy and he's pissing me off. And I'm like, man, like, this guy's so annoying every time. But then I go like, can I like I was like, is this my problem to take on? Or like, is this something that I should be, or should I just be like happy that guy like gives a shit about his job at Tim Hortons, and like, he wants to show me the best experience ever. And like, I shouldn't be like plaguing it by the fact that I have to go to work, and like, I'm pissed off that this guy's happy with his life. So yeah, it's a big reminder to me too, right? And yeah, now I kind of want to dive into too, like, I'm a big UFC guy, martial arts guy. I don't do it, but I'm really interested to know about how's your experience with combat sports helped you with your ability to like handle conflict. I know that's like a big thing in like the martial arts world and UFC, where people, like, I have a friend of mine where he says like, I don't have to fight people because like, I could kill this guy right now and it's like not an issue. So like, I'm fine letting this person like, because like, I understand that like, I'm in control of my scenario, like I'm in control of what's going to happen. I have the techniques and the training in place. So to full cycle that, do you find that because your experience in wrestling and martial arts, and even just your interest in that type of experience, do you find because you're exposed to that, you find you're a little bit more comfortable with conflict? Not saying you want it to happen, but do you find that you have a little bit more of like, I'm gonna be all right, like it's fine. Like when things start to go awry, like I can slow it down. I can be like Neo in the Matrix and be like, that guy just shit that way. Or like I can see this guy raising his hand up by his face, or like I see he bladed his stance, right? Like,
Well,
yeah,
even just him handling the homeless encounter
exactly.
situation, like that situation at the gas station. And then the other situation, and you can elaborate it because he was there. Some guy was trying to stab a 13-year-old girl, and then he was able to hold this guy into submission until the police came. Like how
Right.
important those skills are. Like not only did he protect this 13-year-old girl and other people that were there, I mean, he did put himself, at risk. But I'm just so grateful that he is trained. Like as a wife, I'm like, why'd you do that? Also,
Yeah, of course. It's one of those things, like, but it's one of those things too, when you say that, it comes down to this empathy thing where it's like, why are you helping that person and putting your life at risk? And it's like, sometimes you just got to do. Like sometimes you can't watch something like that happen, right? So it's a testament to that type of attitude, right? Where it comes down to like how much you're willing to have this self-sacrifice in order to like make sure that you like say, because then you say like, would I have been able to look myself in the mirror if I didn't, right? Like so that's
when
probably
you're
one of those
trained to do
things too.
things like that, yeah, when you're trained to put your body on someone and control their body, it's so you do get a lot of confidence in that for sure. You're like, okay, if it came down to that situation where I have to keep this tornado from moving, because that's what it is. I mean, we have
Right.
so much physical potential in a body. Even if someone, you look at them and you're like, well, I got 40 pounds on that person. It's like when they start to panic and they think their life's in danger, trust me, it gets
Or
different.
if that person has any form of training too.
Sure,
And
absolutely.
right,
So
but then you go like, and that like that's why I find like I'm way less like I wouldn't want to say I was like confrontational, but like if someone parked in a way, I'd be like, nice parking job, dickhead, or whatever it is, right? Where then you start to say like, I have no idea what this dude's capable of, right? So with that too, do you find that type of attitude with like the self confidence and stuff? Is it's more of like a stoic, right? Like it's more of like a
yeah,
stoic approach where like you understand you're capable of it, but it's not like an outwardly like measurement that you're trying to show.
yeah, you understand that you have a process to handle a situation, right? It's just like all these things that we talked about. Whether it's a skill to have, right? It's like, okay, if I encounter someone who's rude to me when I'm cleaning their teeth and handle a situation, I have a process to kind of de-escalate the situation and swerve a little bit so that no one's uncomfortable. The same way with someone's physical with you, right? Or if they're putting their posturing that they're going to intimidate you in that way. Like, okay, well, I do have a system that I can avoid danger here. So I'm just going to be super vigilant and hyper aware in the moment, and I'm going to react based on what I
Mhm.
see. So in the situation that Hannah's talking about, there's a guy and he was clearly the aggressor, and he's got a box cutter and he's trying to cut people, right?
Mhm.
And so you go into a different zone where it's not like, oh, I'm going to do what everyone else is doing around me. It's like I have a system to take this guy down if I need to.
which everyone's taking videos and pictures and like
Right, and that's true, right?
Yeah.
like the
The
instant
whole
run, like not take out your phone, but like
That's the impulse that a lot of us have, right? And so when you realize that you're the only one in the room that maybe can handle the situation, it's a little bit of the calling. You're like, well, I guess I have to do it.
exactly right. And I think that it's one of those things where there's only so many people that are going to run towards the fire, right? And it takes a certain type of attitude, but also certain. I think it comes down to again like the inward thinking or like that internal dialogue of like it's it's not necessary like you're doing like some people would have the idea of like, well, I'm going to do this and maybe like it's going to make me look good, where other people like you see it as like a necessity, right? Where you say like, I wouldn't be able to sit well with myself if I didn't action this, or if I saw someone talking rudely to someone who was not able to be able to defend themselves. It's like for me and like my ability to communicate with people, it would be a disservice to them if I didn't.
I'm plugging in the
Oh,
computer
okay.
is slow.
And I say that it would be like a disservice to the people around me if I didn't use these learning opportunities that I was able to have to kind of help people, right? Because you look at like less fortunate or someone that didn't experience that training or someone who had traumatic experiences that led them to shy away from that, right? So it's very commendable to be talking to someone that's willing to kind of put their head on the table, right? And because in those situations, it could go 1,000 different ways, right? Where this
I'm
isn't a
grateful.
sanction, it's not a sanctioned UFC match, right? So it's you don't have like there's no refs there, there's no this and that, but you can obviously tell through the training and that you've developed a certain type of composure where it becomes like not second nature, but it becomes something where you're like, I'm just going to rely on my training, right? And, and how do you find that? Do you find that you find the same type of community when you look at wrestling and like martial arts and stuff like that? Like, how do you find? Because I have a lot of friends that are in like martial arts clubs and this and that. And the biggest notion that I've had from them is like, they're like, come join. Like, these guys are awesome. Come join. Like, and this is something that I see with a lot of sports. And there's usually like a very big barrier of like expertise where like people don't want you on their team unless like you've proven yourself. But when you look at martial arts, it's more or less this like huge welcoming thing where people are like, no, 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 come. Like, we want to teach you. Like, we want you to be part of this community. Can you touch a little bit about that and like the community aspect and like how that's kind of is it a unique thing when it comes to martial arts?
The idea behind it for me is the more trained people you have out there in your community, the better, right? Because the trained person is not going to escalate a situation to danger as much as an untrained person would. Right? An untrained person hasn't had that physical contact as much, so when they feel their body get that hot and that level of anger, they might be more likely to step into the danger zone than someone who's actually experienced it over and over and over and over again. So I would say that the community welcomes that because they recognize when you disseminate that dojo life, that spirit into your community, it is safer. I truly believe it. Like, I know that if I'm walking down the street and I have a bunch of gyms around me with a bunch of trained professionals and I start mouthing off, there is someone out here that can handle their business.
Exactly.
Right? And if everyone has that sort of mentality of like, hey, by the way, I can't just, be overly aggressive with someone.
Yeah.
I can't steal from someone. I can't, physically attack someone because there's a risk there. The risk goes up because more people know what they're doing.
And with that, probably, sorry.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say with that, it probably has some huge benefits on your mental health as well in terms of I see it as almost like a humbling experience, right? Like you go in and you go like, shit, I'm in a room with some killers.
Oh,
and
yeah.
like, and it's very, you're almost very like thankful to have that experience because you're like, and then you start to look at like their methods of training and what they've done. And you start to go like, shit, like it's like the iceberg I'm talking about, right? Where it's like, well, it's just two dudes punching each other in the face, like, or it's just us wrestling on the ground. Like how difficult can it get? And then you start to look at like, oh, this guy's doing like, he's defending a double leg takedown 900 times a day. Yeah. And he's doing like wrestling off the cage. And that's all he's doing for one day. And you're like, it's not that easy. And like, I have a newfound level of respect and understanding simply because like I'm in this type of aura. And then with that, you've probably enhanced your own self and go like, well, they were so welcoming to me that now like I'm going to use that same type of attitude to bring more people in because of the benefits and like do you find that's kind of a thing too where it's kind of like this subconscious thing where people see it as such a benefit where they're like, everybody has to try this.
Everybody's got to try it. It's one of those things where you watch a good movie, you hear a good song, and the first thing you want to do is tell your friend about it. That's how it is wrestling or any sort of martial arts. I used to coach kickboxing as well. And so one of those things that you're in a conversation about, oh, what kind of activities that you do? And then the martial arts comes up or the kickboxing. And right away, I just want to say, just come. Just I don't even want to talk about it. Just come. Let's go do it. Let's just start punching and kicking. And I don't even have to explain why it's awesome. You just know it's awesome. right?
Yeah.
You feel powerful and strong. And so yes, it's infectious. You know, like a lot of kids at church, I'm always like, hey, how much do you weigh? We have a spot for you on the wrestling team, right? I always want to know, like,
Yeah.
and now our girls wrestling community is starting to grow. Like, I don't know if you know this, but girls wrestling is one of the largest growing sports in the nation.
Wow.
And so now you're starting to see, if you have an athletic girl around, that typically you might put her in softball, volleyball, soccer now, or rugby, or what are these sports. Now it's like, hey, guess what? We have a team. We have a spot for you.
In college.
Yeah.
Colleges are looking for athletes now. So we're starting to see this.
Oh, and and like the amount of potential that you can have with those things is immense. And like I think the attitude towards sports, or not even the attitude sport, because everybody knows sports are good, but I don't think people see the huge benefit of it in terms of working as a team, community aspect, like understanding where you are and what your role is on a team. I think that's another big thing where like you look at something like martial arts where it's like, well, I might be fighting, but I also might be spending the next couple months solely focused on making sure this guy's ready for a fight. So it's not about me. And like, so you have to take that kind of selfless approach. And I think that it's into all type of sports. But I think like the idea of like, I'm preparing this guy for war. Like I'm preparing this guy
I
for
love it.
and I think it brings, I think until you look at certain sports, like I think it takes another level. So you look at like soccer, hockey, basketball, it's like that attitude's there, but is it there at such a low threshold? And I'm going to say no. But when you look at combat sports and you say like just the amount of like I want to say like the Colosseum aspect of it, of like this guy's going to war, where that's wherever you look at whatever age group you look at, that's there, and like that mentality is there. So I think like it's very special in that aspect where like you have to play at a very high level to experience that amount of like camaraderie or someone looking out for you, because it's still like a one player's game type thing where I think with combat sports it just kind of like it takes it to another, it just dials it up to like a 1.5, you know what I mean? Like so
I
it's
think it's
very
because you can't
interesting.
hide your work. You can't.
Exactly.
There's no hiding. You know, like, so if we coach a kid and we're trying to get them to a certain level. So for instance, we took 2 kids qualified for the California State tournament this year from our team, right? And it's hard to do. So we took those kids down there, and there's all this like pressure to make sure that you have the type of coaching and the type of like, well, okay, I got to get them, make sure that they start warming up at a certain time. I got to make sure that they're eating the right food. I got to make sure that they're focused on the match and not necessarily focused on some crap going on at home. Like there's a lot of things that you focus on, what you anticipate the needs of the athlete that you're supporting and what they might fall into, and try to give them some exposure to it. And you throw your whole body into it, and then it's just them out there competing. And if they do a poor job, everyone's looking at you as a coach. Okay, they didn't do so great, and then they look at you and go, why didn't you teach them that? Right? Like,
Right.
what are they missing from you? So
Yeah. It's very wholesome. I think that the idea of coaching is like it's very wholesome. Like, I think once you see those finished products and you see like what you're able to do, or like a guy finally is able to do this transition or he gets this takedown, you're like, fuck yeah. You're
yes,
like,
we did it.
yeah, let's go.
It's like, so Dylan's been coaching me. Basically, when we got married, he was like, all right, it's like, I mean, I'm getting like double leg tackled in the kitchen or whatever, like always like doing something new. But I'm like, okay, like I need to learn. So basically, yeah, I mean, this is my coach. Then he taught me how like do kickboxing and then hit with the pads. And like before that, I barely knew how to like kick or whatever.
Mhm.
And just for someone who's learning, it's like, it is empowering, especially being a woman and being able to feel confident going out when I'm not with my husband,
Yeah.
to be like, oh, I'm okay. Like I've got skills. Like if someone messes with me, and I'm a big lady, like I'm tall. It's like, okay, that's intimidating, but like now I could take my leg and like kick you right in your head. Like,
Yeah.
it's like, it's really cool. It's like, okay, like I'm not so scared anymore,
Yeah.
like being out there. So even just like having that in the back pocket, it's like, oh,
Yeah.
that's great.
And then it kind of develops too, where then you get enough skill and training where you go like, I'm dangerous. Like I'm dangerous.
Yeah.
Right? Like
Yeah.
where it's like,
Oh my gosh, that's
like
actually
I don't
what
need to
one of
worry
our
about
coaches
people. People need to
say.
worry about me.
Other coaches literally says his little saying is, you're dangerous when you're tired. You're dangerous. And I'm like,
Yeah.
Like Top Gun.
sometimes
Yeah.
when I am tired, I'm like, I'm dangerous. And like, there was a moment where Dylan and we were working through something in our personal life. And then our first instinct was like, we need to go to the gym and do some martial arts or whatever. And I kid you not, there was a moment he started crying, I started crying, but we got into this like beautiful flow state.
And she's kicking me and elbowing me.
Yeah. It's like poetry in motion.
Yes, I was
That's
like,
what it
I know
is.
I can do that. Like,
Yeah.
this is so cool. Like, and to feel like I'm in my body. Like, I had childhood obesity, so it's like as a kid, you would think that's when you start experimenting with your body, but now that I'm getting older and I'm learning all these skills and I have time to develop and communicate with my body, it feels so good. And there are moments that are like, holy cow, like my body can do this. This is amazing. Like, I'm just grateful because I married a good coach. Like,
Yeah.
put me in the ring.
course.
Let's go.
Yeah. Well, that
No.
that kind of brings me back, and like I'm gonna wrap up this episode here in a couple seconds. I think that kind of brings it back to like the full character art and like what you see as fulfilling, right? It's very humbling, and like it's very awesome to see that like you guys have this introspectiveness and you guys are doing this service to your community, and then as well as you guys are also like fostering good mental health within like your own selves, right? Because I think that kind of gets missed a lot, where you guys aren't missing the mark on that, where you have the understanding of like the things that you need to do to make sure that you're providing a service to someone else. I'm very honored to be with people like that and that type of energy, right? Because it's definitely it's infectious, right? It's something that it goes without saying. With that, I want our viewers to just know on how they can get a hold of you in terms of social media, anything you guys have going on that you'd like to share on the platform. This is kind of your opportunity to give kind of a little pitch of what you guys are doing, and that's going to be the main focus at the end that I'm going to try to highlight, is really trying to bring in that spotlight of the solo duo spotlight.
I would say our message, first of all, thank you for having us on. This was totally fun and just worth it. Any chance that we could share our story with more people, we would love to take that opportunity. The only thing I have to say for people is, I think at a time right now when the world is the way it is and we're scared, you just think to yourself that the future looks bright. There's so many good people out there that are willing to help, that are willing to share and willing to help you grow. Connect with those good people around you. If you have light to share, reach out to them. If you want to reach out to us and work with us, EYEMKR on Instagram, EYE.MKR. If you want to send us an email, sparkle@eyemkr.com. We'd love to help you make cool eyes and stand out and own it. Whatever you're going through in life, own it. That's, I think, our message.
Definitely. And wish us luck because this season, Dylan and we've been learning how to skate as well. We have regionals here this weekend on a professional roller skating team. So
Roller derby.
No, not roller. Like the pretty figure skating routines. It is hard.
It's hard.
Like it's so hard. Like we're competing with national champions. I mean, they're these other skaters. We're just like the fun we're having fun.
Right.
And also like getting some skills. But anyway, so just wish us luck for that. And
of course, good luck.
Business, like we're so grateful for the people who trust us to help us grow this business, because ultimately our goal is to build EYEMKR as a family and spend even more time together and just continue to serve in whatever ways that we're called to do. And so thank you for giving us this platform to
of course
share a little bit about us.